My skin's feeling a little dry. Hold on. Whenever my skin's really feeling dry, I really like to use this this spray serum. This is the Dalba First Spray Serum with like white truffle or something. Good stuff. Anyways, hi everyone. I'm gonna record my day today because I have a few things to do. I just went grocery shopping and now I'm gonna go to the bookstore because one, I wanna look for books. I don't know if I'll buy anything, but it is a secondhand bookstore, so I do like to look through the aisles and see if there's any hidden gems or something. But the bookstore also has a cafe, and I like to sit in there and do my homework. So I'm gonna bring some of my work there. I kind of have a lot to do, but I'm also going to be bringing my Kindle because I'm still in the middle of reading Playworld by Adam Ross. And I'm about, 88% done with the book. I'm in the middle of the second to last chapter. I have 2 chapters left. And so far I really like it. It's just really long and I don't think I'm in like the headspace for it because school's just been really busy lately and I've been putting off reading this because I have like 3 different books I have to read at the same time for school. But I will let you guys know my thoughts once I'm done with it. The other thing I have to read is for my horror class. I'm taking a horror class, guys. I hate getting scared. But I'm taking a horror class because I think it's really interesting. And for the first few weeks, we've been reading short stories in that class. And to be honest, words don't scare me. I'm reading these horror stories and I can get like unsettled and I can get like a little spooked, but I don't really get scared because they're just like words on a paper. So I don't know. I haven't been horrified yet, but in the next few weeks, we're going to be watching some horror movies and horror short films, I think, and I'm really excited for that. I can't wait to get scared, but I also hate getting scared. I am always avoiding horror movies because I hate getting scared. Horror is like my least favorite genre, but you know what? I'm open to it, so I don't really care. The short story that I'm reading for my horror class is called Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates. I've heard of Joyce Carol Oates. I didn't know she wrote horror stories. I'm only about like 7 pages into the story, but I think it's about a serial killer who like goes up to this poor, like I think she's 7 years old or something, 12 years old, this poor little girl and like kidnaps her. I don't know. It sounds really interesting from the premise, so I'm interested to finish it. I hope I got scared. I was supposed to read 2 horror stories. The other one I read was The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. This one was actually really good. It didn't scare me, but I felt like that impending doom feeling. Like the way that Shirley Jackson wrote the story, it made you feel anxious in a way, like you know something bad's gonna happen, but you just don't know what it is. And I really like that feeling. So I actually quite like that story. I hope I get the same thing from the Joyce Carol Oates story. Those are the 2 books that I'm gonna be bringing to the bookstore, just because I am only gonna be bringing my bag and I don't have room to fit all of my books in there. But the other books that I do have to read is The Fraud by Zadie Smith, still, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and this is a new one, reading Victor LaValle's Destroyer. This is a graphic novel. I haven't read a graphic novel in a really long time. I'm reading this for my world literature class. I think it's like a spin-off on Frankenstein or something, but I'm really interested. I looked through the pictures and they're really graphic. But I'm just going to be reading the horror story and Playworld for now. And I'll show you guys what the bookstore looks like. Okay guys, I'm back. And I've been there for a couple hours. I didn't really do much of my homework, but I also looked around the bookstore too. And unfortunately, I didn't buy anything either. None of the books just really stood out to me. But I did finish the horror short story that I was supposed to read, and I finished one chapter of Playworld. First of all, I finished reading Where Are You Going, Where Have You Been by Joyce Carol Oates. It was really good. I never thought that I would be scared by words on a page, but this is actually quite horrifying. It's not like a jump scare kind of horror. It's more like you're fearing for this little girl's life and you're really scared for her and you know she can't do anything, and so you're just sitting there watching her suffer because you know how it's going to end, and it's really, really bad and you're really, really scared. That's just kind of how I felt the entire time. It's a story about a girl named Connie who's 15, and she doesn't really have the greatest relationship with her family. Like, her mom's always yelling at her. Yeah, and her mom's always complimenting her older sister June and asking her to be more like her, and so there's a little bit of tension between the family. The story revolves around Connie when she's home alone one day and the rest of her family is over at their aunt's house for a barbecue. Connie is visited by a man. His name is Arnold Friend, and he insists that she come with him so that he can show her what love is like. And it's just a really haunting story about this older man trying to prey on this girl, and he's convincing her to come with her and she's like, no. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it's really scary because the way Joyce Carol Oates describes Connie's lack of agency and how this man, even though he hasn't really done anything yet, you can see the power that he has over her, and it's really, really scary. But throughout the story, we get to hear how he's saying that she needs to come with him. At the end of the day, she's gonna come with him. And he's saying all of this in sort of like an alluring voice, and he has a charm about him that's somewhat creepy but also enchanting at the same way. And it's so obvious that Connie really doesn't want to go with him. Connie's always saying, I can't go, my parents are waiting for me, like I have to stay home. But even though Connie's constantly refusing this, he's constantly going after her, and she has no power to make him go away. And it's so scary. It really is horrifying. I won't say how it ends. You can probably predict how it's going to end, but I'll just leave it out there. It's really scary. It's one of the scariest stories I've read for this class. I really liked it. Anyways, I also read one chapter from Playworld. I have one left, and I'll say a few thoughts about it before I finish it, but from what I read today, it's very interesting how Griffin, his character, is living very closely to the adult world. Like, he's sort of thrusted into the adult world. He works with a bunch of adult actors. He has a relationship with like a 34-year-old woman, I think. And so he's constantly surrounding himself with these adult figures in his life. And the more you read, the more you realize that adults are a lot like children. Like, and we love to believe that adults are very different from children. Like, they're more mature, they have their life together. But at the end of the day, this book kind of just shows you that children and adults are very similar. In the chapter that I just finished, oh my God, it was actually so scary. I was reading this in the cafe and I actually said, ugh, out loud. Not to spoil too much, but the scene that I read involves a married couple fighting. And it's so childish that the way Griffin narrates the whole thing, he's saying that the husband is like chasing the wife around with a saber in his hand, trying to cut her down. And then when the husband sees Griffin standing at the door, he sees him and starts chasing after him. But then the woman's saying no. And so she grabs the door and then he slams the door on her and her pinky literally falls off. And I think like koi fish eat the finger or something. It's literally horrifying. And they act like children. And even Griffin, the narrator, he's reflecting on this moment. And he even says like, is this really what the adult world is like? Like, it's literally insane. That's probably the most action this book has had, to be honest. But yeah, I have one chapter left, and the chapter is like longer than an hour and 12 minutes long. I'm sorry, but I hate long chapters. Just seeing that number, an hour, I don't want to read it. But I'm almost done. It's just one chapter. I'll finish it today, and then I'll give you my full review later in the video. But now I guess I'm gonna keep doing homework, because now that I've read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson and that Joyce Carol Oates short story, I have to write an analysis of those two stories. And I also really want to start reading Victor LaValle's Destroyer because it seems interesting and I don't think it's going to take very long. I just have to read 3 chapters from this. Yeah, and also I am an English major, but I am also a psychology major. And I do have some psychology homework to do. I think I have to complete like this APA assignment or something. And then I also have to do some other stuff for my neuroscience class. so I guess I gotta get to that too. Oh, I almost forgot. One thing that I love about finishing books is picking out my next one. So because I'm almost done with Playworld, I'm gonna pick my next read. I think because Playworld was such a long novel, I'm gonna try and pick something shorter now. Hold on, let me just show you my bookshelf. I kind of want to read something short just because Playworld was super long, so I'm thinking maybe Antarctica, just because it's short stories. I'm not entirely sure though, because I also really wanted to read this book, Dear Dickhead by Despentes. Another option is Intimacies by Katie Kitamura. I've heard good things about this book too. I don't know. Those are my top 3 choices right now. Okay, so I changed into some home clothes, and unfortunately, I lied. I don't want to do my homework, so I'm just gonna put it off. And instead, I'm gonna finish reading Playworld just because I have an hour left and I might as well get it done. But I might also be starting Destroyer just because I doubt it'll take me too long. So those are the 2 books that I'm planning to read right now. Okay, I took a dinner break and then I kept reading, and then I finally finished Playworld by Adam Ross. I guess an hour didn't feel that long. It went a lot faster than I thought it would. But overall, I did like this book. I thought it was really nice. It paints a very vivid portrait of Manhattan in the 1980s, and it does a really good job with that. And I love the political background as well. I thought it was very neat. I wish I read this during a time where I wasn't so busy with work, because it is a really long novel and you have to sit with it for a while. So if I didn't have as much schoolwork, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. The descriptions are also really long in this book. Like, I remember there being a whole page dedicated to the narrator just talking about how his dad is just ironing a shirt. And like, okay, the descriptions are nice, but they're sometimes a little unnecessary and a little long. Other than that, I found it really, really nice. As I said earlier, one thing that I really liked is the exploration of adulthood and how it's so similar to childhood. What I really liked is how Griffin is kind of on the cusp of adulthood. He's very involved with the adult world. There's a specific line that Griffin says. He says, "Adults, I think now, were the ocean in which I swam." So he's very well involved with the adults, especially because he's a child actor. He's acting with a bunch of adults. He constantly meets the adults that his parents are friends with, including his own therapist, and obviously the 30-year-old woman that he's having an affair with. He has a really interesting insight on it and how all the adults kind of act like children. All of them are like cheating on each other. They're saying nasty things. They all have desires. They all do irrational acts. And I think it's really interesting reading it from a teen's perspective. But going off of that, I also really liked the idea of identity and how Griffin doesn't really know his identity until the very end. He's always putting on a front. Because he's a child actor, he knows how to please other people, and so he uses his skills in order to please the adults around him. He puts on a front, he puts an act on, so we don't really ever see what he really is like until the very end. Also, I thought the characters were all so complex and so well written. I really, really did like this book, and I would recommend it. It is really long, so I suggest probably sitting with this book for a while if you're not too busy with your life. It is a little boring at some parts, but overall I did like it and I did appreciate reading it. I also finished reading the first 3 chapters in Destroyer, and I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily like it either. Maybe it's just because graphic novels aren't my favorite medium. but I don't really know if I'm able to empathize with the characters just yet. We're barely getting to know them, even though I'm literally halfway through the book. There's only 6 chapters in this thing. But I love it when books are in conversation with other books. And this book is obviously in conversation with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And the way that it's done in here is really, really nice. In Frankenstein, we normally see Victor Frankenstein create the monster due to hubris because he wants to create life and become a god of his own. But this book kind of takes a different route and says maybe Frankenstein created the monster because he was grieving the loss of his mom and the loss of his family members. And I thought that was really interesting. I really liked how they took a spin in the original tale and used grief instead. So I do like that part, but that's, I don't really have much thoughts about it, to be honest. It's interesting. I like the pictures, I guess. There's one, maybe I won't show it because it's too graphic, but there's one where literally it's like a guy laying on the floor and like half of his body is just cut off and you can see his ribs. Very graphic. I also was reading a little bit of Zadie Smith's The Fraud, and let me just say, I really don't like reading this book. I'm really sorry to all the Zadie Smith fans, but I can't. It's so boring. I'm more than halfway through it now. I'm at the part where it's talking about Andrew Bogle's life now back in Jamaica, and I don't know. I can't. The writing style, I just can't get along with it. It's so boring, it's so dull. The historical context is so necessary when you read this book. You kind of have to like be a history expert in this time period in order to read this book. And that's why I think it's so inaccessible. Like, you have to research all of this stuff on your own if you don't already know it. And that's kind of what puts me off a little bit. That's obviously not a bad thing. Like, if you want to learn more about the time period, I think this is an excellent book for that. But just for like the common public to read and enjoy this in their leisure time, I don't recommend this. It's a very specific audience, and that audience is just not me. I think I'm gonna stop reading for the rest of the day. I have a projector, and I kind of just want to sit back and watch TV with my projector, and I might just do that after I shower. So I'm just gonna end it here. Thanks for watching if you watched the whole thing. Bye-bye.